Okay, all right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, let's give all praise, all honor, all glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. We know Camp Nations of Kings and Priests. Um, Today's lesson is going to be about the parable on the marriage in Matthew 22. So y'all get your pens, your notepads, man. Y'all get ready. Um, when we see the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai speaking parables, it has a deeper meaning to it. We all need to, observe these sayings, and those that can hear, let them hear and understand. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and give it off to Shatar, newly Shatar Ariyah. All right, and I yield. Shalom.
Gone. First and foremost, want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Barakadash. So we're breaking out Matthew chapter 22. That's going to be the meat and bones of this whole conversation in this class. And we're going to jump off to some precepts to break that down thoroughly without any other confusion or false doctrines coming out. Somebody, let me get Matthew 22. We're going to read it from the top.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 1.
And read it slow, King, because I'm going to be pulling out a lot of precepts on this one.
Come. It says, And Yahushua answered and spake unto them again by parables. And
So like it. Let's deal with the concept of parables, right? The word parables, it could also be translated when you look it up in the Greek as proverbs, right? So wise men speak in proverbs the same way Solomon spoke in proverbs, right? Just touching on this real quick, that there's a similarity. Some people have this understanding, some people don't. That of a similarity in a regeneration of Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, and Solomon, right? They both speak in proverbs, they both speak in parables. Parables is just the New Testament way of saying proverbs. If you look up the definition on the Strong's Concordance, you'll see what I'm talking about. But keep reading, King.
And said, The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son.
All right. So somebody get me Isaiah chapter 62 and verse 5. Because we need to understand who this marriage pertains to. It's not a marriage for everyone. Everyone is not invited. Not everyone's going to partake in this marriage, right? So we got to keep it in the context of that, the full totality of the Bible to understand what's going on. So read Isaiah 62 and 25. Actually, I might want you to go up a few verses from Isaiah 62.
And 5.
Let me read from where we just read verse 1 and then halfway through verse 1 I just want to establish the context of who's talking to who, and then we're going to jump down to verse 5.
This book of Isaiah chapter 62 verse 1. For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace, and for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest. Verse 5. For as a young man married a virgin.
So subject matter, right? Zion, Jerusalem, right? If King would have kept reading, they would have talked about the salvation. Actually, read verse 1. Read the title 62 and 1. Let's get that entire verse real quick.
Isaiah chapter 62 verse 1. For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace. For Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until the righteousness thereof go forth as brightness, and the salvation thereof as a lamp that burneth.
So the salvation is for Zion, for Jerusalem. There's the subject matter in this context, right? Now let's jump down to verse 5.
Verse 5. For as a young man married a virgin, so shall thy sons marry thee.
So subject matter, right? The children of Israel, the sons of Zion, right? Those are who's getting married in the context of the scriptures, right? Keep reading.
And as the bridegroom rejoiceth over the bride, so shall the Most High rejoice over thee.
So it's showing that the marriage is between God and the children of the sons of Zion, right? The sons of Israel, right? Now let's go back to Matthew 22. Read read 22 and 2 again from the top.
This book of Matthew chapter 22 verse 2. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son.
So now that we understand who's invited to the marriage, right? I'll pull out one more quick precept. I'm in the book of Isaiah. I got it. The book of Isaiah, chapter 54 and verse 54 and 5. For thy maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, right? And the Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God of the whole earth, shall he be called. For the Lord hath called thee as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth, when thou was refused, saith thy God, right? So it's just showing, again, he's coming to redeem Israel. The husband is the maker, Yahweh Shai. He's coming for Israel, right? Showing, again, two other precepts showing that the people synonymous being called the wife, the bridegroom, and this whole concept of the marriage is talking about the children of Israel, right? So now let's go back to tells it out. Hold Matthew 22. Somebody get me Revelations chapter 19.
Come.
Now let me get a second reader. I'm gonna need more than one reader on this class.
Revelation 19 and what?
Revelations chapter 19. Read verse 7 and 8 for me.
This is Revelation chapter 19, verse 7. Let us be glad and rejoice, and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come.
So Revelation, so like read this slow, King. So Revelations, right? After the death, burial, and resurrection, we're in the New Testament. It's talking about the marriage of the Lamb again, right? So let's keep in mind some keynotes here. Read it again from the top.
This is Revelation chapter 19, verse 7. Let us be glad and rejoice, and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready.
And we just read who the wife was in Isaiah. We read two verses in Isaiah where Isaiah is breaking down who the marriage is between and who the husband and the maker and the wife is, right? So keep reading.
Verse 8. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen.
So remember this keynote, right? This wife is going to be arrayed in fine linen. Keep reading.
Clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints.
Right. So now there's righteousness that these people that are getting the bride, right, invited to the marriage, getting this clean white linen, right? Somebody get me Psalms 147 and 14. Because so we're going to show consistently straight through the Bible from the beginning to the end, right? New Testament and Old Testament, this marriage of the Lamb, this biblical concept from beginning to end, right? So now that you're seeing that the marriage of the Lamb, tell me when you got it. The marriage of the Lamb, right, with his wife, and his wife is getting this clean linen, right? So and his wife is also being called the saint, right? So let's see who the saints are called in the Bible. Read it when you got it.
This book of Psalms, chapter 147, verse 14.
Salakia, 148 and 14.
148. And it says, he also exalted the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints.
So let's see who the saints are, right? Keep reading.
Even of the children of Israel.
Who are the saints?
Even of the children of Israel.
The children of Israel are the saints. Keep reading.
A people near unto him.
Read the next verse.
Praise ye the Lord.
Keep going.
Oh, that was it in that chapter.
Yeah, I'm read 149 and 1.
So like it says, praise ye the Lord, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise in the congregation of the saints.
Still talking about the saints. Keep reading.
Let Israel rejoice in him.
Let who rejoice in him?
Let Israel rejoice in him.
Keep reading.
Let Israel rejoice in him that made him.
Showing that Israel is rejoicing in the maker that we just read in Isaiah, right? The maker, the husband, Read.
Let the children of Zion be joyful in their king.
Because he's the king of Israel, right? Now let's go back to Matthew 22. I'm gonna break this down slowly and thoroughly. Where we at? Matthew 22. We're at verse 3 now. So now that I'm showing from the beginning, right, and I'm gonna build this point that the marriage is between the Son of Man, right, the Mashiach Yahushai, and the sons of Zion, the children of Israel, right? Read verse 3 in Matthew 22 when you can.
Verse 3. It says, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the marriage.
So let's
read
the verse again from the top and read straight through.
It says, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. So
let's see who this message was going out to, right? Let me get and let's see who the servants were. We're gonna see who was called, and let's see who this testimony was supposed to go out to, right? Somebody get me James 1:1, and somebody get me Romans 9.
Got Romans 9.
John, read 9-4 for me. So we're gonna see who is called to be a servant and provide service to the Most High God. Read.
This is book of Romans chapter 9, verse 4. Who are Israelites?
Subject matter, the Israelites. Read.
To whom pertaineth the adoption.
So the adoption pertains to the Israelites. We all know this. Keep reading.
And the glory. And the covenants.
Keep going.
And the giving of the law.
And what else?
And the service of Yahweh.
So the service of God is given to the Israelites, which will make them the servants of God, providing the service of God, right? Finish that out.
And the promises.
So now let's go back to Matthew 22, right? So, and we just showed, let me get Isaiah 55, 45 and 4. Slack it, 45 and 4. Because we're going to keep showing line by line, here a little and there a little, and we're going to build this point straight through without a shadow of a doubt who's being talked about, right?
This book of Isaiah. Oh, you got it?
Yeah, this is Isaiah chapter 45, verse 4. For Jacob, my servant, sake.
So again, showing Jacob, select it. Showing again, Jacob is the servant, Israel the servant. Read.
I'm going to start over. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, my elect.
And Israel's the elect. Keep this in mind, right? Israel's the elect. Read the slow, King. Israel's the elect. Keep this in mind, right? Keep reading.
I have even called thee by thy name.
So he called Israel, Jacob. This is who was called, right? Finish it out.
I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me.
So Israel is what's called, right? So now let's go back to Matthew. Now that we understand who the servants of God were, right? In Matthew chapter 22 and verse 3, and who was called. They're both being identified, New and Old Testament, as the Israelites. So now let's read verse 4.
Verse 4. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, tell them which are bidden, behold, I have prepared my dinner.
What is he prepared?
My dinner.
What's another word for dinner? If I invite a whole group of people, somebody get me Leviticus 23:2, and then get me Exodus 12 and 11. So if I bid a group of people, right, to a dinner, right, or a big feast, right, that's another word for a big dinner, a feast, right? Let's see who the Most High prepares feasts for all throughout the scriptures. Read whichever one you got first, Exodus 12 and 11 or Leviticus 23:2. Whoever got it first.
This is Leviticus. This is Leviticus chapter 23, verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel.
Speak to who?
And say unto them. Speak unto the children of Israel.
Subject matter, the children of Israel. Read.
And say unto them concerning the facts of the Lord, feasts of the Lord.
So the feast of the Lord, right, is
talking. Shall proclaim to be.
Select your king. So it's showing, right, concerning the feast of the Lord. Subject matter, Israel and the feast. Keep reading.
Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts.
These are the feasts of the Most High God, right? Read the other precept if you got it.
Exodus what 2?
I think 12:11. I said.
Exodus chapter 12, verse 11. And thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover.
And you know the Israelites are invited to the Lord's Passover. The Lord's feast days, from beginning to end, they were always invitations to the children of Israel. This is not an open invitation for every nation that wants to just come strolling uncircumcised and think that they can have the seat at the Lord's Passover. That'll be a sin for us to do, right? So now that we see, and I'm showing you who the feast pertains to in the Bible, right? That dinner that he's preparing for, he only invites Israelites to the feast. He only feasts to Israelites, right? So let's read Matthew 22:4 again from the top.
This book of Matthew chapter 22, verse 4. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, tell them which are bidden, behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage.
Keep reading.
Verse 5. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise.
So they made light of it, right? Let's see, according to the Bible, who makes light and didn't hear the words of the voice of the Most High, right? Give me Psalms 11, Psalms 81 and 11, and then somebody get me Ezekiel 30, Ezekiel 3 and 7, Ezekiel 3 and 7, and Psalms 81 and 11, because we're gonna see who has not been hearkening unto the voice of the Most High God, right? Who made light of these commandments? Who made light of the invitation, right? Who made light of being told to repent by the prophets? Read whichever one y'all got it first.
This book of Psalms, chapter 81, verse 11.
Read Psalms first.
And it says, but my people would not hearken to my voice, and Israel would none of me.
And that's how Israel made light of it, right? Read the other precept. Ezekiel 3 and 7.
This is Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 7. What's 7 right? But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee.
So the house of Israel
will not hearken unto me.
So the house of Israel, right? Subject matter is the ones that are not hearkening. They're the ones that's being obedient, right? Read it again from the top.
This is Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 7. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. So
these are the ones that made light of it, right? They were impudent. We were rebellious against the Most High God when he sent his messengers, his prophets to preach to us, right? Now let's go back to Matthew. We're at verse 22 and 6 now.
The book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 6. And it says, and the remnant took his servants and entreated them spitefully and slew them.
So the remnant, right? The remnant of Israel. Let me get Isaiah 46 and 3. And then let me get Luke 13 and 34. So the children of Israel, the rebellious ones of Israel, right, are the ones that took the servants and slew the prophets, right? When they listened to the harlot Jezebel, they slew the prophets back in the Old Testament. When they slew Stephen in the book of Acts, right? These are the rebellious ones of Israel, the remnants that were always going against the true servants, the prophets of the Most High God, treating them spitefully and slaying them. Read Luke 13 and 34 when you got it.
This is Luke chapter 13, verse 30. This is Luke chapter 13, verse 34. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killest the priests, the prophets, the stonest them that are sent thee. How often I have gathered thy children together. At hand dost gather her brood under her wings, and ye would not.
So it's just showing Jerusalem. These red letters, right? The Messiah, the same one that's talking in the Gospel of Luke, Gospel of Matthew that we read it from, right? It's saying Jerusalem, Jerusalem that killed the prophets, right? So when he's talking about the remnants, right, it's the rebellious part of Israel, right? The 2/3 that's been slaying the prophets that haven't been in hearing these words, right? The same way they're doing today. And let me get Isaiah 46:3.
This book Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 3.
Because remember, right, the remnant, right, that took his servants and slew them, right? Read.
And it says, hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of Israel, of the house of Israel.
The remnant of who?
And all the remnant of the house of Israel.
So it's the remnants that when you read the Bible and you understand the concept of the remnants is the children of Israel, right? Let's go back to Matthew. We're at verse 7. Somebody grab me Revelations real quick. Read Matthew 22 and verse 7.
This book of Matthew chapter 22 verse 7. And it says, but when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned up their city.
So let's see this prophecy being fulfilled in the book of Revelations, right? Let me get Revelations 14 and 11, and then I'm on the chapter 19. So chapter 14 verse 11, and then 19 and 11.
This book of Revelation chapter 14.
I got 14 and 11.
Read.
Now go ahead.
You got it, Tess. Read.
14 verse 11. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name.
These are the murderers that are going to get burnt up in the cities by the armies of the Most High God, right? Everybody that's joined to that beast. Let me get 19 and 11 now.
19 and 11. Revelation chapter 19 verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doeth judge and make war.
What did this king do?
And in righteousness he doeth judge and make war.
So when the Messiah comes, he's going to judge the nations. He's going to make war with the nations, right? Now let's go back to read Matthew 22:7 again from the top. Now that we understand the king and him, what city is going to be burnt, right? It's not just Babylon, the great city. A lot of these nations are going to get burnt up with it. But the heart of the destruction is going to be Babylon the Great, which is modern day America. Let's get verse 7 again from the top.
Verse 7. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burnt up their city.
So when Yahushua comes back wroth, right, full of that indignation, he has these cities are going to be burnt up. There's not going to be anything remaining of these cities. If you read the Old Testament, you read these prophecies, we could pull that out after, and we'll get into that. But there's nothing going to be remaining of these places once the Most High is done with this place. He's going to pour out his indignation in a way the world has never seen before. And that's what we're calling brothers and sisters to repentance, to change from that pattern, that path they're on, to escape that judgment. So let's get back to Matthew 22. We're at verse 8.
This book of Matthew chapter 22 verse 8. Then saith he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidding were not worthy.
So we're all trying to be worthy, right, of this marriage, right, to come into this marriage, right? So let's see some concepts on what makes us worthy and unworthy, right? Let me get Matthew chapter 10.
Book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 1.
Slacking out. Read 10 and 10. And then jump down to 38. Con.
So read to 38.
No. Read
10 and go to 38.
Con.
Matthew 10, verse 10. Nor script for your journey, neither 2 coats, neither shoes, neither yet staffs. For the workman is worthy.
For the who?
For the workman
is for the brothers putting in this work, read.
Is worthy of his meat.
Red letters, right? That meat, right? That bread, right? The everlasting water. You're worthy of these things because you're the workman. You're putting in this work. You're going out and teaching the truth. You're trying to edify your brethren. You try to edify your nation, uplift your nation, and bring them back to the Most High God's plan, standards, and way, and life He had intended for them from the start, right? Those are the workmen, and those are the ones that the Bible is saying is worthy, right? Let's get another example of that. Read verse 38.
Verse 38. And it says, and he that taketh not his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me.
If you're not following after the Hamashiach Yahawashai, if you're not taking up your cross, right? If you're not following Him in these laws, statutes, commandments, you're not worthy of Him, right? So if you want to avoid the judgment, right? You want to not be judged with the everybody else in Babylon the Great and be burnt up with them. Put yourself in a position where you will be found worthy, right? Worthy of that meat. Bear your cross the way the scriptures are teaching you, right? And put in that work. Be a workman for the Most High God. Be worthy of that meat. Let me get Luke 15 and 21 real quick. And let me get Colossians chapter 1.
Said Luke 15:21.
15:21.
This book of Luke chapter 15, verse 21. And it says, and the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be thy son.
So because of sin, right, you could be found unworthy to be called the son of the Most High God. Yes, you are a son because you're born of the seed line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? But it's not just being a Jew inwardly, not just being an Israelite inwardly, right? We have to manifest that shit. We have to manifest it outwardly as well, right? So to be found worthy, right, as we just read, you don't want to be found having sinned against heaven, right? Because that makes you unworthy, right? So that's just another example of things that make you worthy, things that make you unworthy. Let me get Colossians 1 and 10.
This book Colossians chapter 1 verse 10. Oh, you got it from.
Yeah, I got it already. This Colossians chapter 1 verse 10. That ye may walk worthy of the Lord unto all pleasing.
Worthiness, right? Walking in this worthiness.
Being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God.
So to be worthy, right, you have to be fruitful in this work, right? It's not saying fruitful in the faith. It's saying fruitful in this work. You got to get up, tie your boots, and get out there. Load up and gird up your loins like a man and get out there and put in this work the way the Most High intended us to do, right? And also increasing the knowledge of the Most High God, right? Don't be a fool in this truth, right? Be a wise teacher, keeping these law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. So let's go back to Matthew 22 now.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 8. Then said he to his servants, the wedding is then said he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy.
So like it pause right there. Let me get Isaiah 58 and 1. Isaiah 58 and 1, right? Because he keeps telling us to bid them to the marriage, bid them to the marriage, bid them to the marriage, right? This is why brothers go on these highways and byways every Shabbat or throughout the week, trying to bid brothers and sisters to come to this marriage, right? And we're going to see how we've been doing this. Brothers want to feel certain ways that we go out there and we cry a lot and we preach a non-Christianized doctrine, but we're trying to reach you because these Christian churches are deceiving you. That whole doctrine, the way they go about everything is deceitful, right? So read Isaiah 58 and 1 when you got it.
Con. This book Isaiah chapter 58, verse 1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet.
This is how we do it. This is how and why we go out and cry aloud and spare not. We're trying to bid people to the marriage, right? We're not going to whisper it to you. We're not going to be cowardly about it, right? We're going to be, we handle it like men. Some people, they're not used to seeing men of the Most High God, right? It's been almost 2,000 years since people seen men calling themselves Israelites on the scene. And now that they're seeing this, it's something, an astonishment to them, right? It's something that they weren't ready for. But we're here and we're teaching brothers and sisters, man, who we are, and what we're here to do. Read it again from the top.
This book Isaiah chapter 58, verse 1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins.
So and that's what we're out here doing, right? Trying to show the children of Israel, the house of Jacob, their sins, and we're crying aloud and we're sparing none as we do it. Let's get back to Matthew chapter 22. We're at verse 10.
Come on. Nah, we have verse 9.
Come on. Read 9.
Come on, verse 9. Go ye therefore into the highways. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid them to marriage.
Keep reading.
So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests.
Keep reading.
Verse 11. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not a wedding garment.
So let's pause it right here, right? Let's take a second to understand the concept of the biblical garments, right? I need 3 precepts. I need Joshua chapter 7 and verse 21. I'm gonna need Zechariah chapter 3, and I need Ecclesiastes chapter 9. So the concept of the garments, right, is something that is taught in the Torah, and it's to say your outward appearance, right? If you're tarnished with sin, right, somebody would say your garment is filthy, right? If you're without sin, they would say your garment is pure, your garment is without stain, without blemish, without spot, right? So I'm gonna read Genesis chapter 35 and verse 2, right? Then Jacob said unto his household and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, right? So he's talking about strange gods, the idols, right? And be clean and change your garments, meaning change your ways. He wasn't saying just to change your clothes. He was telling them in subject matter, put away these idols, change your mannerism, change your garments. He wasn't talking physical. It's a spiritual discussion that's going on. You could apply it to a physical sense, but if you understand what's going on in the spirit, he's telling them spiritually, change your garments, right? So from the beginning in the Genesis, right, you can see how garments are being associated with idolatry, which is basically sin, right? So somebody get Ecclesiastes 9 and 8.
Book Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 8. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. So this concept of the garment, right? He's not saying let your clothes be white. He's talking about be without sin. That's what he's talking about. That's the garment in Ecclesiastes, right? Now, somebody get me Zechariah chapter 3. That's when he got it.
Khan.
We're reading from verse 4.
Zechariah chapter 3, right? Or 9?
Chapter 3.
Okay. Yeah, this is the book of Salakia. This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 3, verse 4.
Salakia, start from verse 2.
Start at verse 2. Okay. Verse 2. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan. even the Lord that have chosen Jerusalem
Who did the Lord
rebuke thee.
choose?
Jerusalem rebuke thee.
Keep reading.
Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire?
So
Now, Salakia.
so subject matter, right? Jerusalem, right? We're gonna see the concept. Keep in mind, right? We're still discussing. I didn't read the subject matter. We're still discussing the garments, right? But I'm just showing you the context talking about Jerusalem. Keep reading.
Come. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments, Lakia, and stood before the angel.
Keep reading.
And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him.
If a carnal mind might think they're talking about actual clothes, right? Let's see what they're talking about. Keep reading.
Come. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with change of raiment.
So to change your garment, right? To change your raiment is to change from your wicked ways, to be pure, holy, clean, without spot and blemish, right? The same way Hamashiach Yahweh was, right? So now let's go back to Matthew 22.
Come on. Book of Matthew chapter 22, verse 11. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw that a man which had not on a wedding garment.
Meaning he came in, he saw somebody that wasn't dressed appropriately for the wedding, right? Meaning you weren't in your white garment, meaning you weren't without sin. Read.
And he said unto him, friend, how comest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment?
Somebody get me Luke 1 and 4. So like somebody get me in the blue letter Bible if somebody can. Luke 1 and 4 in the blue letter. And then somebody get me Isaiah 41 and 8. If we could screen share Luke 1 and chapter 1 and verse 4 in the blue letter, that'd be appreciated. But Isaiah 41 and 8, I need that precept. I want to show you who the friend is. When the Bible talks about a friend, we have to establish who this friend is, right? So read it when you got it, King.
This Isaiah chapter 41, verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen.
Read it again from the top. Read it again from the top.
My friend. It's Isaiah chapter 41, verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend.
So the seed of Abraham is the friend, according to the scriptures, right? So when the Messiah is talking, he's saying, my friend, it's the same seed of Abraham that's talked about. So let's read Matthew 22 and 12 again from the top.
This book, Matthew chapter 22, verse 12. And he said unto him, friend, how comest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless.
So let me get Ezekiel 20 and 36, I want to say. Ezekiel chapter 20, 36, right? Because we have to understand what's going on in this scene. It's something prophetic that's going on, that he's seeing these people that are pretty much going to have to be purged out, right? Because they're in his presence with sin. They're in his presence with these filthy garments on, right? So let's see what this is alluding to in the prophecy.
This book, Ezekiel chapter 20.
Right. Read up 30. We verses 30. We're reading 36 through 38.
Verse 36. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So
whose fathers were being pled with? Who did the Most High plead with when he took them out of the land of Egypt? The children of Israel, right? So subject matter is still talking about the children of Israel here in Ezekiel. Read it again from the top.
like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Lord God. And I will
Read.
cause to pass under the rod.
So talking about the children of Israel, the ones he took from the land of Egypt, he's going to make them pass through the rod. Read.
And I will bring you into the bond of the covenant.
He's going to bring the children of Israel into the bonds of the covenant. Read verse 38.
And I will purge out from among you the rebels.
So there's going to be a purging after this. He's going to purge out the rebels, right? The ones with the filthy garments. Read.
And them that transgress against me.
Because you sinned, your garments are filthy. And that's why they're going to be purged out. Keep reading.
I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn.
So keep reading.
And they shall not enter into the land of Israel.
So once there's going to be a time when the children of Israel are taken out of Babylon the Great, but before we get into the promised land, we're going to have to pass under the rods of the new covenant. They're showing that we're not in the new covenant as well, right? So now after we pass under the rod and enter into the new covenant, some people are going to be getting purged out during this process. They're not going to be brought into the bond of the new covenant because their garments are still filthy. They still transgressed and they never repented. That's why we teach, change your ways and repent and come back to these law, statutes, and commandments, right? So now that you understand...
hey, Shatar, real Salakia, real quick, and I think that's a great point, right? We're reading the scripture. There's a lot of points under there, right? So it says, and I will cause you, right? It says in verse 37, it says, I will cause you to pass under the rod and bring you into the bond of the covenant. Even though, we're going to be taught again. We're going to be, brought up again into the new and into the new covenant, where he's going to force us the same way he was purging out the rebels in the wilderness when we left out of Egypt. It's the same way. There's nothing new under the sun. We're going to have to basically pass under the same rod we passed through before. So the same things that we heard in the old covenant, where we were passing, where we were getting fiery snakes bitten upon us, stakes, right, coming up from the ground, right, the earthquakes, right, all that, is gonna make us come into the new covenant again and purge out those rebels. Y'all gotta understand. This is why we say, we're still under the new covenant, because we're gonna be forced into this next covenant, and us being forced into the next covenant the same way we were forced into the first one. So again, these are the type of scriptures that we look at. And we have to reanalyze, because a lot of brothers say we don't have to do that stuff. We good. We're going to make it into the kingdom. Yet this scripture says otherwise in its future tense. So I just wanted to highlight that. Go ahead, Shatar.
Khan. Let's stay in Ezekiel 20 real quick, just to elaborate on this point, right? Let's read where we did 38. Let's read verse 39. We're going to read down a few more verses. Just to show the context, right? Because I don't want people to say we're taking us out of context. So read verse 39, and we'll stop at 41. We'll read 41.
Come on, verse 39. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith the Lord God, go ye, serve ye every one of his idols. And hereafter also, if ye will not hearken unto me, pollute ye my holy name no more with your gifts and with your idols.
So just the way we read a second ago, right, in Genesis chapter 35, right, the idols, when Jacob was telling them change your garments, right, and put away your idols, it's showing that these idols are the same problem a lot of Israelites have today. When you're into Catholicism and you're worshiping Mary and all these other quote unquote saint statues that you pray to, it's the same type of sin we fell into before, and this is why we're trying to teach people and bring them out of that sin, right? Keep reading.
For in mine holy mountain In the mountain of the height of Israel shall the Lord Yahweh, there shall all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, serve me.
Some of them in the land?
All of them in the land shall serve me.
So when Paul's talking about in Romans 11:26, this concept of all Israel shall be saved, it's not a new concept. Ezekiel was talking about all of them will serve him too. Us being the servants of the Most High God is not by choice. He chose us to be his servants. We didn't. It wasn't a two-way discussion. He wanted us. He chose us. He has the power, authority, and no, there's nobody that can stop him from choosing us and taking us to be his, right? To be his sole possession, and he did so. And as his sole possession, we are called to keep his law, statutes, and commandments, and call and bid our brothers and sisters to follow suit and come back to this wedding, right? Let's keep reading.
Then will I accept them, and there will I require your offerings and the first fruits of your
oblations
with all your holy things. I will accept you with your sweet Savior. Then I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries wherein ye have been scattered.
So he's saying, right, when I will bring you out from the people, meaning the Gentiles, the heathens, the other nations, and gather you out of the countries, right, wherein you were scattered, in America, South America, in Europe, wherever brothers are scattered, right? We're scattered to the four corners of the world, right? So when he gathers us from where he scattered us, read.
And I will sanctify in you before the heathen.
It's like, and I will be sanctified in you before the heathen. So he's being sanctified in the children of Israel before the heathen, not being sanctified in the children of Israel and the heathen. That's not what this is prophesying. It's saying before the heathen, meaning the heathen will not partake in this, right? So let's go back to Matthew. So like, actually read the last verse. One more verse in Ezekiel 20. Read verse 42.
Come on, verse 42. And ye shall know that I am the Lord, when I shall bring you into the land of Israel, and to the country for which I lifted up mine hand to give it to your fathers.
So it's just showing that this prophecy is showing that he's going to take the children of Israel, the true children of Israel, the Black, Latino, Native American, and take us into the promised land that he promised to our forefathers, right? So let's get back to Matthew 22. Where did we leave off at?
13.
Con. Cap, can I get that in the blue letter? Luke 1:4. I want to show what I was talking about with that as well. Still touching on the point, right, where the Messiah in verse 12 said, he said unto him, my friend, right? Or said unto him, friend. So we have to understand, again, right, I'm trying to elaborate and show who this friend is in the context of the scriptures. When you get to the blue letter Bible, it's the word for Theophilus in Luke 1:4. When we dig into that word Theophilus, right, the word Theo means God in the Greek, right? So it's showing that it's a letter, the Gospel of Luke, it says written to Theophilus, which translates to written to the friend of God. And if we understand who the friend of God is, as we just read in Isaiah 41, then that Gospel of Luke is written to that same friend of God, which is the children of Israel, right? The seeds of Abraham.
You said Luke 1:4?
Luke 1:4, Con. The word for Theophilus. Let me make sure I grab the right verse. Salakia 1:3. 1:3.
Y'all see my screen?
Come.
Just
so right here, right? In the definition, Theophilus equals friend of God. So when he says I write this, when he's writing this letter to Theophilus, right? He's writing to the friend of God. That is, in a spiritual sense, you can understand that as he's writing to the children of Israel. The same friend that was talked about in Matthew. There's a consistent theme throughout the Bible. From cover to cover, if you're digging into the spirit and you're meditating in the spirit, you start to understand and see things, especially when you start digging into the Blue Letter Bible, these lexicons and these manuscripts. It'll start to come more alive to you, right? Let's get back to Matthew 22 and 13. We're about to close it out.
Con, look at Matthew chapter 22, verse 13. Then said the king to the servants, beat him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of the teeth.
So we know where this is talking about, right? You're not going to be brought into the kingdom. You're going to be pretty much cast into hell, for lack of better words, right? To either destruction and have it come back into the kingdom as a righteous Israelite later on, or permanent destruction, right? But more than likely, it'll be to be regenerated to the kingdom. But you're better off just coming in through the front door, being righteous, being holy, being pure, being worthy to be redeemed by the Most High God, and then walking to the front door, right, without catching that destruction first. Read the last verse, 22:14.
For many are called, but few are chosen.
And let me get Deuteronomy 7:6 real quick, just to hammer that home who the chosen were. Because this is the whole entire context, right, of the parable of who the Messiah is saying is coming to the wedding, being bid to the marriage, and partakers of this marriage, right, is consistently the children of Israel. Read Deuteronomy 7:6 when you got it.
God's book of Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God have chosen thee.
He has what?
Have chosen thee.
For many are called, but few are chosen. The children of Israel are the chosen. Finish that out.
To be a special people unto himself.
God chose the children of Israel to be a special people unto himself. This is why we're calling you back to the Father. Read.
It says, above all people there are upon the face of the earth.
So there's no such thing as equality in the Bible. That is a false doctrine and a myth and a heresy. There's no such thing as equality. Men are equal to women. There's nothing alike in this world. Anything natural, there's no two alike. There's no snowflakes that are alike. There's no trees that are alike. There's no people that are alike. Everything you're all individuals. This whole notion of equality is madness when you understand the biblical doctrine and the biblical narrative and the way the Most High set things up. He set things up in order. Some things supersede others. It's not to say one's trash per se, but it's an order in things, that the way the Most High set things up from the beginning to end. He's a God of order. He's not a God of chaos.
If I could, real quick precept, to slam back in what you're saying. I'm going to share my screen here right quick. All right, and I'll read it. This is Jeremiah chapter 31. I'll start out verse 1. Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 1. It says, at the same time, saith the Lord, will I be the God of all the families of Israel, that they shall be my people. Thus saith the Lord, the people which were left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I went to cause him to rest. The Lord has appeared of old unto me, saying, yea, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn thee. You see that? So it's kind of like that, parable with the loving kindness a husband has for the wife, and Israel being the wife of Yahweh, and always has and always shall be, that everlasting love when constitutes as a marriage. Even Yahweh Shai Mashiach, when he speaks about marriage, he says, for in the beginning it wasn't so. Divorce wasn't in the beginning. To implement that because of sin, because of transgression, right? So our division with the Most High was because of iniquity, because of sin. So that parted us from our marriage to the Most High. He divorced us. So again, bidding the marriage with Yahweh Shai Mashiach. Ayo.
Con. The same concept like in Ephesians, right? When it talks about, let me pull it up real quick. It's Ephesians 5 and 25. So when it's teaching for husbands to love your wives the same way Christ loved the church, right? And he's willing to die for his wife, right? They're showing a parable. Christ and the church is supposed to be like a husband and the wife. So if a husband and wife is compared to Christ and the church, and we just read that Christ died for the children of Israel, then who's the church? His wife. And the church is the children of Israel. This is a thing that's I need that precept, church in the wilderness. I think it's 1 Corinthians 10, if I'm not mistaken. Salakia. Give me a second to pull this precept. I think it's Acts 7:38. Let me just double check. What do you get? Acts chapter 7 for me?
Acts.
I think what I want is, I think I want 7:38.
This book of Acts chapter 7 verse 38. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness.
The church where?
The church in the wilderness.
The church in the wilderness when we left Egypt. This is he, the Messiah that was with us when we left Egypt. Read.
With the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us.
So what is just showing, right? The church that was in the wilderness, the same way the Messiah is going to have to pull us into the wilderness and purge some of us, this church and the wilderness is synonymous with the children of Israel. There's no other church in the Bible. Paul, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, these are all Israelites. They were all part of the church, but yes, they were all children of Israel. The children of Israel, we make up the body. We make up the church. We are the body. The Messiah is the head. But our body is in disalignment with our head. And we need to come back into proper alignment to fulfill what the Most High had intended for us from the beginning. But with that, I yield the floor. If brothers got precepts, feel free to bring them out. And brothers will hold on anything.
I got a precept.
Con,
it's the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 36. And it says, watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man.
Con. Again, right? Touching on that point, being found worthy to escape all these things that were going to come to pass. And we read and we proved and we verified to be found worthy is to be found with your garments clean, pure, holy, white. Not the way they use the word white today, right? Meaning pure, like sanctified, right? So in order to be sanctified, you got to be without sin. And sin is transgression of the law. So keeping these law, statutes, and commandments and the faith in Hamashiach Yahushua is how you keep your garments clean. That's how you keep your garments white. People have to understand believing in Hamashiach Yahushua is a Torah law. We were commanded to believe in the Messiah from before he even existed. Let me grab that last precept real quick. I think it's Deuteronomy, I want to say 17. Salakia. Give me 1 second. Uh, 18:18. Somebody read Deuteronomy 18:18.
This book of Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18. So it says, and I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren.
Read it again from the top.
I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren.
So the Most High sent a word, right? That he's telling the children of Israel, he's going to raise up a prophet. This prophet is talking about the Hamashiach Yahushua, right? It's not talking about Muhammad. It's not talking about no Quran. Muslims love trying to use this verse to tie it to their beliefs. This has nothing to do with that, right? Read.
like unto thee.
Like unto thee, meaning I'm gonna raise up an Israelite like one of you. Muhammad is not an Israelite, so he's not a brethren like unto thee. Read.
And will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him.
So this is us being commanded in the Torah to believe in this prophet, which is the Hamashiach Yahushua, right? And I'm gonna prove that. There's the Gospel of John, chapter 5 and verse 46. For had ye believed Moses, what we just read in the Torah, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me. And this is what we just read when he was writing of the Messiah, when he was writing of that prophet to be raised amongst our brethren, right? So even in the law, you're commanded to obey the Hamashiach Yahushua, which we know, which the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And we're trying to teach our people to come back to believe in him in the way he taught, not the way the enemy taught, not the way the deceiver taught, not the way the devil taught us to disobey and go against them. But with that, I yield the floor. If you got something else, King, bring it out.
I got one more. I got one last one.
Come
to Deuteronomy 18 and 18. How the brother brung out. This is John chapter 12, verse 49. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me, he gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak. Come on.
So just showing the Messiah is the fulfillment of that prophecy. He's that prophet that we've been waiting for, right? That redeeming, worthy sacrificial lamb that was worthy to take that toll, that to pay that price for us. And we give all thanks, honor, and glory for that sacrifice that the Most High gave for us, right? But with that, I hope this class is edifying. I hope brothers and sisters took notes that they received, and stay tuned. We're gonna keep coming out with classes every week. And with that, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Ruach Kadash. And with that, I want to say Shalom.
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 Kwame Nasrallah.